Welcome to the Fit Dad Nation podcast, forging strong fathers and raising a stronger generation. It's time to get up or shut up with your host, Steve Roy.
Hey guys, it's Steve here, host of the Fit Dad Nation podcast. Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. If you're a dad listening to this show right now and you're not happy with some aspect of your health, your fitness, you have to make a change. If what you've been doing or not doing is not working for you, and honestly, there are just so many men out there, 35, 40, 45, 50, they just aren't taking care of themselves the way they should be. And because of that, they feel like shit. They look like shit. They're not happy with themselves. Confidence is down. Sex appeal is down. You're not happy with how you feel in front of your wife. These things create a lot of problems for you on so many levels. If you need help, I would highly, highly advise finding a tribe, finding a coach, finding some help to get you out of that. Because seriously, we're not getting any younger. And, if you're not doing anything or what you're doing just isn't working, make a change. And that's the only way to do it. You have to make a change. So, I invite you to join one of our free groups, fitdadnation.com/communities, our free private Facebook group. You can also join our Inner Circle program, which is our private member program. We do a lot of stuff in there to really, really hone in and help dads get fit and stay there. That's at fdnic.com. That's the Fit Dad Nation Inner Circle. So today I do want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while, something that I struggle with quite a bit myself. And it's actually, it's huge. You don't really think about it that much, but it's really a huge part of our health. And what I want to talk about today is emotional eating. And so obviously we know that diet plays a massive role in our body composition, how much weight we're going to lose, how we feel. Obviously we know it's a massive, massive part of it. And so at its very core, yes, it's really calories in versus calories out at the very basics, right? If you eat less than your body requires, you're going to lose weight. If you eat more, you're going to gain weight. And so what I want to talk about specifically is why we're overeating. And a lot of that is tied directly into emotional eating. And I read something somewhere which said emotional hunger cannot be satisfied with food. And I really believe that, and if you think about it, eating different foods or drinking alcohol, whatever, it's so tied into our lives socially. I mean, it's got deep roots, emotional roots in our social aspect, and it's really kind of ingrained in every part of our lives. And you've probably heard the analogy that food is like fuel. It's like putting gas in a car. I don't really buy into that analogy. It's just far more complex than that. And if you're just using food as fuel, I think that's a short-sighted view. I think that it's ignorant. And it doesn't make sense because very few people that I know, unless you're a competitive athlete or bodybuilder, are going to use food as straight fuel, right? No. We do it because we like food, we like to eat, we like to surround ourselves with people and eat together. A lot of what we do outside or in gatherings revolves around food or drinking. So it's far more than fuel. I mean, just think about family dinner, family reunions, holidays, barbecues, birthdays. We celebrate promotions, new babies, parties, anything. All of those things revolve usually around eating and drinking. So it's a big subject, and it's important to understand that it's very hard to just say food is fuel. I'm just going to have this particular food. I'm only going to eat this particular way, because it stretches out into a lot of different parts of our lives. Some of those are really deep ingrained habits and behaviors. And so it's not like an easy fix where you can just say, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm just going to eat this way. It's really not that simple, And so, I've gone through a number of ups and downs with my own diets, my own stress and emotional eating. And, years ago, when I was first separated, and I've shared this before, I turned to food. That was my release. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't drinking. I was down and depressed away from my daughters for the first time. And so, I turned to Big Macs and McDonald's and Red Bulls and Snickers bars. And that was my emotion. My sadness was absorbed by all this food. And I'm certainly not alone here. There's really just so many reasons that we eat or drink. We could be bored. Maybe we're tired or stressed out. Maybe we're pissed off. Maybe we're just sad. We could be overwhelmed. But it also could be things like the weather. When it's gloomy out, we tend to go to more comfort foods, right? Social events, TV or advertising can suck us in and have us start thinking about certain foods, certain times of day, especially at night when you start craving those things. That's an emotional response to either a time of day or you're sitting in time with your family or whatever it is, right? A certain smell. You could be driving by a certain restaurant and you have that trigger, right? Even as far as rewarding yourself, for I've seen people reward themselves for weight loss, which is kind of crazy to me. They lose 5 pounds and then go out and splurge and have this giant celebration. And anyway, that's another subject. But anyway, there's so many reasons that we're emotionally eating, and one of the keys is to recognize that you're actually doing it, because, like I said earlier, you don't really think about it. When's the last time you just sat down and said, you know what? These are my triggers. This is why I'm eating. Now I know that, and I can stop, right? I'm going to ask you to actually do that, but how many of you have actually done that already? Very few, probably. You don't think about it because it's just part of our lives, our day-to-day. We don't even recognize that these are triggers, right? You'd really have to think about it, So, I'm not going to sit here and act like, well, you guys need to change things, because I'm in the boat with you guys. I still go through this all the time. I still struggle with this all the time. Even now, I'll catch myself, whether it's something with my daughters where I'm stressed out about something, whether it's a business or financial stress, maybe my relationship, I'll turn to specific foods, and typically, they're not good choices. Emotional eating isn't inherently bad. It's a normal thing, but the problem is what happens. We end up choosing foods often that aren't conducive to our health. They're sugary, they're salty, they're processed foods, they're fried foods, there's alcohol, stuff that's not helping us. That's the comfort foods, right? We rarely have a strong desire to go out and have broccoli salad or a head of cauliflower and celery, right? That just doesn't happen. Right, we want to go to junk, right? And it's so strong because it creates this endorphin high. It's a rush of endorphins. It's called an eater's. I'm just maybe making this up, but I look at it as it called an eater's high. You've heard of runner's high. I call it eater's high. I think it's probably like any other high, right? I wasn't actually thinking about this until I started putting together notes for the show, and I thought about it, and one of my weaknesses is Red Vine's licorice, right? Some people hate it, and they say, Twizzlers are the way to go. For me, Red Vines are like the best taste on earth, and I'm starting to think about it now, and I'm like, well, why is that? And the more I thought about it, I realized, when I was a kid, every summer, my brother and I went out to California to stay with my father for the summer, and then we would fly back to live with my mother for the rest of the year. So we only saw my dad, who lived across the country from us 3,000 miles away, just 2 months out of every year. And that was the best 2 months of the year by far. We just loved being there. We hated, it was just so sad going back. But during that time, he worked at UCLA. And he would let my brother and I just basically loose on campus, for a few hours, and we'd go out and get into, kid stuff. And one of the things that we did was go to the student center, which sold a bunch of stuff, including candy. Back then, there was actually containers, open containers of licorice on the register where you could walk up and buy one piece of licorice for, I think it was 5 cents or 10 cents or something. And so that's what we used to do. And I really thought about it, but yeah, like that memory, it was such a good memory to have those times. And you're out in California, it's sunny, we're playing sports, we're with our dad. We just loved it. And so not that the Red Vines are a delicious food, because most people hate them, and I'm sure I probably wouldn't like them either had I not had this experience with them for so many years. Every year I'd go back, we'd always keep buying these red vines, and it was just a really cool thing. So that's what I'm talking about here, is there's so many things that you have to think about, like, why am I doing this? And so, what I want to share a little bit is, first, before you start trying to get into the nuts and bolts of how to kind of move past the triggers and the emotional eating and start making better decisions, I would really seriously advise spending some time and just thinking about where you're at physically. Like, if you're unhappy with yourself, let's say, all right, you're at home, you're 40 pounds overweight, you don't move well, right? You can barely do a push-up, definitely can't do any pull-ups. You just feel weak, you're tired all the time, and you generally you kind of feel like a fat ass, right? Recognize how you got that way, right? Take responsibility for it, okay, because it is your fault. And then start looking at what are those decisions that you've made that have gotten you there, and sure, there could be a lot of reasons, but a lot of it, other than inactivity, is going to come down to overeating. And if you look a little bit deeper, it'll be tied to emotional eating, right? Because overeating often, not always, but often is tied to your emotions. So once you recognize that, then you can start looking at, okay, now this is how we're going to make some changes. And so you're not caught up in the perpetual trap of overeating or eating junk foods that are hurting your health because of any number of reasons, right? You got passed over for a job promotion, your wife isn't, wanting to give you sex very often, whatever it is. There's a million reasons that we turn to food to cope with something. And so once you can start looking at those triggers, then and only then you can start really, work on fixing it, because at the end of the day, this is a problem. This is for guys that recognize they have an issue with emotional eating and want to make it better, okay? If you don't give a shit, I don't either. Do whatever you want, that's fine. This is for guys that are interested in making some changes. So, number one, know the difference between emotional eating or emotional hunger and physical hunger. So there's two separate things, very different, right? You're probably, maybe never even in your life have you actually been in a deep physical hunger state, right? Where you're starving, like you're very, very physically hungry, right? Maybe it's happened a few times. You worked a 16-hour shift and you couldn't take a break, or whatever it is. But chances are that it's been just purely emotional, because your body is just telling you, for whatever reason, your mind is telling you that you need to have some food, whether it's just a habit, whether it's a certain time of the day, you think that you need to be eating every 3 hours, whatever it is. This country is so overfed, it's ridiculous. We're constantly in an overfed state, constantly. It's food at our fingertips, 24/7. We eat all the time. We eat whenever we want, whatever we want. That's why we are so fat, okay? Like I said in the beginning, emotional hunger, it's not going to be satisfied with food. Emotional hunger will not, emotional hunger is you're going to feel like you have to have immediate gratification. Hey, like when you get that emotional hunger pang, it's, I need to have something right now. And usually it's something specific, right? For me, it would be like, a Snickers bar or chocolate fudge Pop-Tarts. Stuff's horrible, but I love it. And so that's what happens. Like, you go to a place in your mind, there's a memory, there's something, there's a trigger, boom, you want a specific food. And yeah, chances are, you don't feel great about it afterwards. Maybe you even feel guilty, especially if you're trying to clean up your diet. Okay? You have to just understand that, there's a huge difference, and you're not going to starve to death. So physical hunger, I would put that aside. We're not in a third world country where there's no food. You are not going to starve to death. So you have to learn to tolerate the hunger and understand the behaviors, understand the mindset process that's happening. That's just calling out for you to go eat something crappy. That's really what it boils down to. I would say, really at the top of the list here is finding an alternate means to coping or rewarding yourself. Right? This is different for everybody, but like I said, and you know this already, many of us cope with life's pitfalls, struggles, stresses, whatever, with food or drink. A lot of times it's alcohol related, but a lot of times it's food related. You had a hell of a day at work, boss is on your ass, you're not sure you're going to have a job, or whatever it is. On your way home, I just want to stop at Wendy's, and suck down a number 2 meal, a large Coke. I know I'll feel better, right? And that's just a trigger. That's just your mind telling you that you want that sugar, you want that salt, you want that grease, you want that fat, right? I'm not saying it's not delicious, because it is. I'm saying that, your mind is telling you that will make you feel better. And it might in the very short term, and actually it will probably make you feel better in the short term. But, you already know how you're going to feel afterwards. You're going to probably not feel great. You're probably going to curse yourself out for making a bad decision, but after the fact. But ultimately, it leads to long-term health problems, right? We know that this happens. You keep eating this shit over and over, and you can't get out of this habit. Yes, you're going to get fat. You're going to get sick. You're going to get unhealthy. You're going to shorten your lifespan. You're going to create more problems for your body, right? You got to start thinking about those things. Okay? I would say also, this is something that's huge, is just take yourself out of the trigger situation, right? So for example, let's say you love going to baseball games, right? But every time you go to a baseball game, whether it's with your family or your friends, whatever, you're going to eat a bag of peanuts, 3 hot dogs, and have 4 beers, right? Because you love it. It feels awesome. You're at the game. This is what people at the ball game do, okay? But what it's going to be like afterwards. Right? You're going to feel like shit. Not only are you going to spend, $80 eating a few cheeseburgers or hot dogs and 4 beers, but, you have to recognize that whole environment, is just telling you that this is what you have to do because you've always done it and it feels good. This is what's right. This is right. Going to make you happy. If you want to change that, it doesn't mean stop going to baseball games. That's ridiculous, right? But instead, make a different plan. Stuff yourself or eat, fill up all the way before you actually get into the game, right? Eat a normal meal, make sure you're not hungry when you get there, okay? You could leave the money in the car, right? Don't bring money in to buy all that shit, right? That's one way to solve your problem, okay? You could also ask your friends or family, whoever you're with, to hold you accountable. Say, listen, I'm really trying to make a few changes. I don't want to have this shit, but I really want it. Just hold me accountable. Boom. Right there. Okay. These are the small things that can really make a difference. Okay. If you know your triggers, if you know your trigger foods, get them out of the fucking house. It's not that hard. Get them out of the house. If they're not there, you cannot eat them. Okay. That's about as basic as it gets. Okay. Do not keep that shit on. I don't care if your kids like them or not. Okay. That's always the excuse I hear is, the kids eat them. The kids like it. Well, they don't need to eat that stuff either, first of all. Yes, it's another conversation. I know some of you are like, well, anyway, get them out of the house. Your kids will find something else to eat. Okay? Get it out. One of my favorites and one of the most eye-opening is track your foods. And I would say, honestly, track your foods for a whole month. Log them, times, amounts, and honestly, you'll be shocked. This is not in a good way. You're going to find how much you're eating, the quality of your foods, the times you're eating. You're going to learn, just so much about when you're eating and ultimately why you're eating. Okay, because if you can understand that, okay, at this time of night, I really want to have this, glass of whiskey, and then I want to have some crab dip and whatever, right? If you recognize those are issues and they're holding you back from your fitness goals, make sure you recognize the fact that these things are happening, and then and only then are you going to be able to start working on them, right? If you're listening to me like, what is this guy talking about? I don't have any issues. I'm not eating for an emotional reason. I'm hungry, I eat, and boom, I move on with my day. Okay, look deeper. Okay, because I would say the vast majority of guys listening, and I'm on the same boat here, are eating a lot of meals from an emotional perspective, not, okay, this is my lunch, this is my dinner, okay? That's when we run into the problems, right? Now, we can implement all these strategies, and you're not going to eradicate all of your emotional eating immediately. No, of course not, right? This takes time. You have to rework on some habits. There's a lot of deeply ingrained thoughts. There's a lot of deeply ingrained habits that you have. This is going to take time, but it's really, really important to start looking at it, okay? And I'm going to challenge you with one thing here before I go. Next time you go to grab something, right, you go and you're triggered. You want something and you want it right now, whatever it is, and you know that it's not helping you towards your fitness goals. You know it's something that, although you do want to eat it, it's not going to help your body at all, right? Wait 5 minutes, full 5 minutes before eating it. Okay, you can go to it, put it in your hand, whatever. Wait full 5 minutes, okay, and then go back and see if you still want it. Okay, chances are you won't. It's that immediate rush. It's that immediate gratification that we just have to have. It's so overpowering. If you can ride that out just for even a short amount of time, come back to it. It's just kind of like same with buying something, right? You go into a store, you see something that you've been wanting for a while, and you couldn't find it somewhere else, and then all of a sudden you're like, I have to buy that. I gotta buy it. Right? But you know that maybe it's not into your budget right now, or you're gonna have to stretch it a little bit, or it just doesn't make financial sense. Walk around the store a couple times and go back to it. I'll tell my kids this when they want to buy some junk and they want to piss their money away. I say, let's wait. Let's walk around the store. Let's look at some other things. If you still want it, before we leave, let's go back and get it. And usually, not always, but usually, they don't. They forget about it, and we just leave without ever mentioning it again. Same with your food. Okay, try that. Anyway, guys, hope this helps. This is a big, big topic. Can't be covered by one show. Take me 20 shows to get through this. But just please keep in mind, just think about what I said today. If you have any questions, need any help, find me on social, The Fit Dad Nation. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more information, check out the Fit Dad Basecamp group on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by fitdadnation.com. Until next time, keep kicking ass and taking the next step. You can do this, Dad.